Hello and welcome to another edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. I'm Gary Mack, and on the other side of the universe, he's not that far away, is my good friend, Mr. Rich Baxter. Rich, how the heck are you?
All right, Mr. Gary Mack, how are you? Great to be joining you on this. This is our first show where we know who the winner of the World Series is finally.
It is the Atlanta Braves, Rich, have won their first World Series title since 1995. They defeated the Houston Astros in style in with a shutout game 6, and 4-2 was a 6-game series. I thought it would go 7. I thought we'd see a little bit more from the Astros in that final weekend, with the final 2 games, I should say. But they only got the 1 game back, and kudos to the Atlanta Braves. They played a fine series.
Yeah, when the Braves couldn't win it at home in that 5th game, I got a little worried for them. I was pulling for them, of course, being a National League guy. When it went back to Houston, I was kind of worried for them because, yeah, they only had to win 1 game, but all they had to do was lose that game 6, and it's just up for grabs there. But luckily, they did come out and bring the bats to Houston and took an early lead and sort of like put Houston back on their heels a little bit.
Yes, and they couldn't recover from that. And I gotta admit, I'm shocked. Atlanta had a good team. We knew they were the best team, probably. Thinking about it in our division, the Eastern Division, but you had to think that were they built to last, and boy, they kind of steamrolled through the playoffs.
Yeah, they did. They brought timely hitting in. Guys were stepping up here and there, different guys too, not the same one every night. And it seemed like Houston was more cold than hot on most times. It seems like their guys were kind of relaxed, but not getting it done on the diamond, not getting those timely hits, maybe thinking that it would come at some point, but never did come for those Houston Astros. And they just looked flat for the series.
Yeah, you got to almost wonder, did the Boston series take a lot out of them? And that was a tough grind of a series. You got to wonder if that was part of the cause of them looking flat. But let's give it. It just could have been the pitching of the Atlanta and the offense. Just they just came to play. That's all I can really say. Jorge Soler was named the MVP of the World Series, and another guy that they picked up and really had a big impact in the series. You remember back to the NLCS, it was Eddie Rosario who had a big impact, and he was the MVP of that. So some great pickups by the Braves, and they came through at the key times.
Yeah, and as you said, it was the first win since '95 for Atlanta when they beat the Cleveland Indians back then 4-2, way back in '95, and that was the heyday for the Braves. I was watching a little bit of MLB Network this morning with Glavine, Smoltz, and Maddox rehashing those days and the highlights from those years, and they were really something. They were in and out of the playoffs every year for many years in the NL East. We remember that well.
Mm-hmm.
99, of course, they were swept by the Yankees in that series, so they didn't win there. But yeah, long drought for the Braves. They came through, and one of the old podcasts that we had on baseballtalkradio.com came out of mothballs for this one. Atlanta Baseball Talk podcast did a show that they released yesterday. It was an interesting listen for a few minutes for me. I used to listen to that show quite a lot. But it's amazing that the way they sort of became the loathe podcasting after a while. And I think because they had it on a Sunday night every night, they never mixed it up a little bit. But to hear them talk about it was like a painful thing sometimes for them to go through. And that just recording a podcast about a baseball team. But kind of chuckled a little bit at that to listen to that. But it was
And a
nice to hear them
winning
back.
and a winning team at that.
Yeah, winning team. Just talk a little bit. Some lighthearted comments. It's not like they were getting paid big money at a studio and had to drive 30 miles or something like that. But it's funny to hear them talk about, oh, I can't bear to do another podcast about the Braves. What are we going to talk about? That sort of thing. But they came out of mothballs, and there is a one edition show if you want to look it up. It's not on baseballtalkradio.com anymore, and took it off there because they did end the podcast. But if you Google Atlanta Baseball Talk podcast, you want to listen to it, you'll find it right on Google. And another note about a different podcast, Gary, Baseball PhD podcast with Ed Kasputis, Farley Dillinger. By the way, I love that name. That's a real name, not made up. And Mark Rantala, they did a podcast on the winning championship by the Braves there. And Ed and Farley Dillinger actually attended a game at, I think Ed might have taken in 2 games and Farley won, but they have a nice recall of what they found out at Atlanta. And believe it or not, that you learned a little bit about, the exterior of the game, so to speak, like them getting to the ballpark, having to pay $150 to park in any lot surrounding that stadium, because that stadium was built basically on its own, and then they surrounded it with different projects, but no
Yeah.
parking lots.
I thought they
Everything's a
had.
private lot out there.
Wow. Okay.
And one night, Ed had recounted a funny story where he had to park. He finally just parked in the Days Inn motel parking lot or hotel parking lot. They're $150. He goes in to pay the bill and took out his credit card, and the lady smiled and said cash only to him. So
It probably would have been cheaper to get a room there.
yeah, possibly. I mean,
You know?
it's crazy the way you find these things out. And every city has its own little detraction, but that's a huge detraction. They tomahawked those fans that went to go see the Braves play championship baseball, and around the stadium they profited them like crazy. That's almost a crime in my book.
And I don't know if they have a rail line, because that was one of the big things I remember when they were building the stadium, that they were talking about, that there was no rail line or anything planned to take people out from this, because it's a little bit outside of Atlanta.
Yeah.
So they didn't have that public transportation to go out there. And that's crazy though. But at least I don't know how Philadelphia is, but the Mets have public transportation if you choose to go that way. So but I always go park when I go and pay $25. I guess it would be, probably triple that or double that. But they do have the concession, so they're not going to do, they can't go that high like they did there. But I don't know. Does Philly have public transportation, trains and whatnot coming there?
Yeah, they have a subway line, bus lines, goes right out to the stadium. You have to walk about, let's say, a quarter mile from the terminal to where the stadium is, but it's fairly close, and you can take the public transportation right there. So, and they have parking just like City Field around. They planned it out properly. I
Right,
don't think
right.
I don't think the Braves planned that out properly, where they're going to shave their fans $150 cash, no less. Who walks around with $150, $200, $300? Maybe for the World Series you do,
Yeah,
but I know
maybe.
I don't. I barely have 20, 30, $40 in my wallet most times.
And again, I thought when they had planned this thing that they were building a parking garage, but that's a little bit bad planning that you don't plan for the parking for your customers unless they do have something and it was all season ticket holders or something and he just got stuck parking somewhere. Who knows, but yeah, that's pretty bad. $150 to park for a ball game.
And
you know I, that's why I think my days uh, of going are over or close to ending. I think I'll watch on TV. It's a lot cheaper.
yeah, we just clicked off the television set and didn't have far to walk to the bed. So I felt good at that. But yeah, a
Sessions.
little trivia question here. The last team to win the World Series at home. Can you guess it?
Oh boy, LA wasn't last year. Houston didn't. Um,
Let me tell you, because it's going to be a hard one.
okay.
2013, the Boston Red Sox were the last
Wow.
team to win the World Series at home, and that was on again on MLB Network this morning. I was taking some notes.
Jeez.
Thought it would be
I
nice
know.
to bring up.
Yeah, I know. In 15, Kansas City won in New York. And LA won last year in where was it? See, there goes my memory. But Houston won in LA, I think, and so it's wow, that's pretty good. All right, well, congratulations to the Atlanta Braves and everybody be gunning for them next year, including our two teams. But Rich, perennial all-star and one of the best catchers of all time and a guy who had to change the rules. Buster Posey, he officially announced his retirement the other day from Major League Baseball. Seven-time all-star, developed into the foundational piece of San Francisco's three world championship. uh 34-year-old, he said that he had come into the year kind of thinking it would be his last, but didn't say anything, and had a terrific year. After not playing last year, he wanted to go out on top with a bang. He hit 304 with 18 home runs, and the Giants had 107 wins, franchise record, their first National West title since 2012. He had a $22 million option and he walked away from it. Um, what do you think, Buster Posey retiring?
Was a bit of a surprise to me when I heard it. Didn't know that he was that physically pained, but apparently, upon his reasons for retiring after a 12-year career, that's what he said: physical pain, constant traveling away from family, that sort of thing. But yeah, he was very close to doing a lot more with his career, but you know, physical pain took the precedence, I would imagine. He says physically it's much harder now. It's hard to enjoy it as much when there is physical pain that you're dealing with. So, you know, when we have an ache or a pain in our knee or our back, we can address it, maybe take some medicine, this, that, and the other. But if you're playing baseball and in pain, I guess that's a different story.
And I can testify that being a catcher, not at that level, can I testify? But it's a tough job. And 34, and he did have a number of injuries, and you get nicked up, and look, I never played above the high school level, and I've got bad knees, and I've got a thumb that won't, doesn't work right. Got arthritis. I've got pinkies that are bent from getting foul tips off of them. So it's a tough position to play. And don't forget the constant you're up and down, you're up and down. The knees take a lot of wear and tear. And he had the bad injury when they had the collision of the plate and they put in the Posey rule. for catches after that. So he's had a lot of wear and tear on a 34-year-old body, and to walk away from 22 million is tough, but um, he made a decision. This is what he wanted to do. He wanted to be in reasonably good health for his family, and congratulations to him. And he went out the way he wanted to go out. He went out having a good year, proving he was still a viable player, and that's the best way to do it.
Yes, it is. And congratulations to him. And as you said, being a National League fan, we don't have to deal with Buster Posey next year. So that's a good thing.
Yeah,
And,
that's a great thing. Rich, another thing this winter is going to be the contract, the CBA, and December 1st, that's going to come up. And um, if there's no agreement, we could have a lockout by the owners. What's your thoughts on that?
well, I hope they don't do it. I hope baseball finds a way to meet each other. Um, I think it would be a tragedy on the players' parts for going out on a strike, especially with what we're going through in the country. Um, Record unemployment, although we can't find people to take jobs. So this is not going to sit well with the public. Just like in 94, we lost a lot of fans to baseball. I think in 2021, 22 here, as we split the year, as we're coming up close to another year on the calendar, would be a disaster for baseball to just lock either side out and players locked out for, by owners, or the players just go out on a strike. It just would not be good for baseball or anything around it.
Yeah, you're right, and here's just some of the issues. The playoffs is one of the issues. The owners want to expand the number of teams that qualify for the playoffs. Uh, the players don't necessarily like the idea. They're not totally against it, but they just feel that the more teams that make the playoffs, there's less incentive to spend money on player contracts. They claim that this player's salary has declined. The average salary has declined since 2017. And one of the thoughts on that is actually the thing that we hate the most, and that's analytics. That you know the players brought in analytics. They kept pushing, so to prove their numbers in arbitration, and now it's biting them in the butt. You might say, as the owners are using it in salary negotiation, and free agency is another issue. Neither side likes the current system uh, because sometimes you hit it, you're older, and it doesn't really work out that way. The owners have proposed for players at 29 and a half years of age, as opposed to the current 6 years of service time. But um, the players aren't crazy about that idea because it could severely impact other players, such as a young guy that comes up like Juan Soto came up when he was 19. So he would have to be with the Nationals 10 and a half years under that scenario. Um, I think, it works great if you got a guy that's 25 years of age coming up, but I think that seems to be one that they could come to a compromise with. Um, there's not a lot of 19-year-olds that come, but maybe make the age 25, 26, something in that range, even 27, and see. And then, of course, the usual, they don't trust one another. The money, players the owners are burying money. They thank the union. And, but as we discussed, they've got to be a little more open minded too, coming off of the pandemic last year.
Yeah, there's not much not much you can do if they go out on strike. But like I said, they're going to lose a lot of fans. They're going to lose a lot of support. And, there's not a good reason to do it right now. Maybe here or there's a little bit of an issue that can be resolved, like you said. So hopefully that'll happen. And hey, out of the news of the World Series, we got another quick story here. Dusty Baker is going to return back to the Houston Astros on a 1-year deal. Baker, 72 years old, led the Astros to the World Series in 21 after taking over the team after the 2020 season, which, of course, they were accused of doing some cheating. So Astros bringing back Dusty for one more season.
Well, who can blame him? He did a terrific job. He got them through a tough year with the fans returning and the booing over the alleged cheating scandal. Well, I guess it's not alleged anymore. Uh, and got them to the World Series and got them to a Game 6 of the World Series. So um, can't complain with that. Can't knock that at all. So good on Houston bringing back Dusty, even at 72. Look at him. He's in great shape. He looks like he's in good shape. It doesn't seem to have any health issues or anything. I don't think age should matter as long as the guy's mind is sharp and everything like that. The Mets had Casey Stengel to start when he was old, and well, okay, maybe that's not a good example.
Goes back a
But
couple years.
yeah, and they really didn't hire him for his prowess at that point. Casey was known to doze off in a game or two, and then. But it's funny if you talk to some of the older players, or especially Ed Kranepool, who came up as a kid. Um, he learned a lot from Casey. So there was some of that, but his whole thing was to be the showman for a new team and to get people interested in it. And he did that job excellently. But yeah, age shouldn't really have anything to do with it. If the guy, look at LaRussa. How old's LaRussa? Like 112? He had the White Sox in the playoffs. And so I don't think it should really matter. It's and he had a lot of issues there too. They didn't think he was going to last the season because there were fights going on, and they thought he lost the clubhouse. But they rallied and they won the division. So um, who knows? I don't think age should be any issue at all. But congratulations to Dusty, deserved it.
Yes, indeed. And just a quick note before I forget this one, it was pretty funny. I was watching MLB Network this morning before the show, and they showed the parade for the Braves, a little bit of it. And they had one bus that seemed to go like 35 miles an hour through the parade route. And they were like, what was this bus driver thinking? Because you had fans lining on both sides of the parade route. Maybe he was late. I don't know what the deal was, but they said they didn't speed up the film. And he was just like sort of like charging through that course. So if you get a chance to watch that, it's pretty funny on today's MLB Network show, Matt Vasgersian.
And Rich, one sad note before we go, we forgot to mention this last week. Jerry Remy, Boston Red Sox second baseman, who went on to become a local icon as a television broadcaster, died October 30th at the age of 68. He had battled lung cancer for a number of years, and it was a public battle. He had missed a couple of times. Remember, he had taken time off, and and then he was in remission, and then he came back, and then he was in remission again, and well, this time it caught up with him. So our condolences go out to the Remy family, and to the Boston Red Sox fans, and to our fans that may be fans of the Boston Red Sox. So Jerry Remy died at the age of 68.
Sorry to hear that.
Yep.
Well, one last story before we bring the curtain down on this week's show for you is ESPN Sunday Night Baseball going to have a kind of a new look for next year. Matt Vasgersian already decided to leave, focusing on his MLB Network career, and he's also calling games for the Anaheim Angels. So he will be out as lead broadcaster next year, ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, and Alex Rodriguez contract is up as well. ESPN wants him to stay, but Mad Dog Russo, if you're familiar with him from his radio talk show and on MLB Network, says, quote unquote, A-Rod is terrible. And he lashed out on his analyst type of doing his broadcasts and things like that. And it's just funny that Mad Dog Russo would go after A-Rod like that.
Well, Mad Dog, we know him well here in New York, so that's not a thing. Not surprised with that, but ESPN they just can't get that team right. I mean, they've been switching people in and out of that thing for the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, and just can't seem to hit a combination right. But maybe this time they'll get it right.
Yeah, we'll have to see who takes over there for Vasgersian as the lead broadcaster there on Sunday Night Baseball. Well, we hope you enjoyed this podcast, Baseball Talk Radio Show podcast. Check out our listing at baseballtalkradio.com, over at anchor.fm/Baseball Talk Radio Show. And thanks for listening, everyone.